everybody. Welcome to D&D Optimized, the show where each episode we take a deep dive into one, usually, specific character build for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and do our best to optimize it to give you the greatest numerical advantage for your character's chosen role. So, if you, like me, spend 3 hours a week playing Dungeons & Dragons, but 10 hours a week thinking about all the amazing, fun, powerful, awesome characters that you would like to play in Dungeons & Dragons, welcome home. You have found your place. We're here to theorycraft, to talk geeky numbers, and to just help you get the most out of your character or your theoretical character, as the case may be. So pull up a chair by the fire, grab a flagon of your favorite beverage, and let's theorycraft. My name's Colby. Thanks for being here. Appreciate having you. I have had a request. I've had multiple requests, actually, to do something a little different orally with the sound, and that is to include a little background music. So I'm experimenting with that this week. I'm trying it out. Let me know what you think. If you hate it, if you love it, if you like the idea but you don't like the music selection, if you like the idea but it's too loud or too soft, whatever, let me know. I don't know if it'll be permanent. I might not like it. But it felt fitting for the episode today. So I decided to give it a try. So today I'm going to do my first ever support/healer build. And the reason why, there's a good reason why I have taken so long to do a support or healer type build. You know, when I first started this show, it was really pretty selfish. My motivation was I wanted to quantify as best I could how one build in Dungeons & Dragons compared to another, particularly for damage. And it's pretty easy to do for damage. That is, there's a lot of variables that could impact how much damage a character can do based on their build, based on the spells they're using, the weapons they're using, the feats they're taking, the class that they've taken, if they're multi-classing, etc. Right? You have to take into account also enemy armor class, resistance to damage types, enemy saves versus your spell DC, etc. And so when you put all of that together, you know, it's not always really obvious or apparent. Well, how much damage is this build going to do versus that build at this level versus that level, if they multi-class, if they don't, versus enemy AC, etc. And in my mind, it necessitated some number crunching, some theory crafting, etc. With healing, it's a little different, right? Heal spells always land. They're never resisted. And there are very few ways to enhance a heal outside of the life cleric domain. So if you're trying to figure out something like heals per round, as opposed to damage per round, right? It really just boils down to, well, how much does that healing spell or sometimes ability do, and are you a life cleric? And then you know the answer. So it just didn't seem super interesting, or at least it was difficult to sort of make that compelling or useful, I guess, from a let's optimize this standpoint. The other problem with trying to optimize a support healer build is that, you know, the way healing works in Dungeons & Dragons is very different than, say, how it might work in an online role-playing game. We talked about this last week, right? Where, you know, in that scenario, you might have a tank who's supposed to just take all the damage and a healer who's supposed to just heal all the damage and make sure nobody dies. And it doesn't really work that way in D&D. Thankfully, I think it's better game design. But so the problem is, heals in Dungeons & Dragons are not very efficient, right? You can never really, in my experience anyway, out-heal, at least not sustainably, out-heal the damage that another character and your party may take in a given round, right? If an enemy casts a fireball spell at your entire party and everybody miraculously makes their saving throw, let's say that's a 3rd level spell, and let's say everybody's going to take 8d6, so 28 damage, and then you, in order to sort of counter that, cast a 3rd level spell, and your strongest spell is a Cure Wounds. Cure Wounds at 3rd level heals 3d8, maybe plus 5, depending on what your charisma bonus is and if you're a life cleric, right? And so it's a war of attrition that you're just going to lose. You're going to run out of resources before the enemies can take you out. And or maybe you spend all of your resources, but then on the next fight you have no spell slots left and you're going to die, right? So an effective support healer is not going to just spend all of their time healing. It just doesn't work very well. Healing is more of a triage in case of emergency. You're a battlefield medic. Like you see in those old World War II movies, somebody gets hit by an artillery shell and then they cry out for the medic. Medic, I'm down. I can't fight anymore. I need help. The medic comes in, saves the day, heals him, patches him up, gets him ready to go back out into the battlefield. That's kind of how it works in D&D, with the majority of the healing taking place between encounters, right? Thanks to the short rest, using your hit die type things, and some spells that maybe take longer to cast but are more efficient, things like that. So your combat healing is not really intended to just keep everybody at full health all the time and prevent anybody from going down and going unconscious, right? What is more effective and efficient, generally speaking, is to find ways via buffs for your companions and debuffs for the enemies to prevent that damage from happening in the first place. If you can raise somebody's armor class and thereby prevent them from getting hit, that's usually a more efficient and effective way to heal than by trying to, help them recover any hit points lost that the enemy dealt to them. Also, thanks to the way that sort of death and going to 0 hit points, going unconscious works in D&D, it's more efficient to usually let a character get knocked down and then pop them back up, as opposed to try to keep them from going down in the first place, right? If a character in your party has 5 hit points left and an enemy does 20 damage to them, well, they just go unconscious. They essentially just lose 5 hit points, and you've basically saved yourself from having to heal 15 hit points of damage, right? If you would have cast Cure Wounds on them the turn before, they might have gone down anyway, right? Without having enough hit points to survive that 20 points of damage. And so it's just more efficient and more effective to let them go down and then pop them back up. And hopefully they can then, take a turn, fight around, drink a healing potion, get out of the way, depending on turn order and things like that. So it's just more effective to do that. It's more efficient. But at the end of the day, in a nutshell, what we're looking for good support is, access to the best healing spells out there that are efficient, and or don't necessarily take up your action in order to use, and that give you a variety of ways that you can heal, and hopefully, ideally, even be able to use as few resources as possible, meaning, is it sustainable that I can cast one spell and get healing out of it every turn? There's not a lot of that in the game. But so can we be efficient with our heals? Can we have that sort of triage, battlefield type healer access, and also be efficient in between combats to do things to help heal efficiently, but then also have great access to support, other support abilities and spells like, buffs, debuffs, control, etc. So as I was trying to find that character and who would be best at being able to sort of do all of those things that you're looking for in a good support, I think naturally I settled on the Bard. Nobody buffs and debuffs and does a little damage as well as our favorite or least favorite, as the case may be, class, right? The bard. And specifically the lore bard. They innately have access to some of the best and most efficient healing spells, and thanks to magical secrets, which we'll get into, they can have access to all of the rest. And because some of the best spells are specific to a certain class, right? A paladin or a cleric. But bards can get access to all of them, and have access to some buffs and debuffs that nobody else does. So the lore bard is my favorite choice for pure support, because they can get more magical secrets than even any other bard, thereby helping them do an even better job at being able to then just cherry pick all the best support spells. What's more, they have a lot of, the lore bard specifically has a lot of great ways to help their teammates avoid taking damage in the first place, which, as I mentioned, is really, I think, the most effective and efficient way to heal than anything. So cutting words, which again we'll get into, is such a great way to do that. So with that long preamble, and without any further ado, I present episode 15, the support lore bard, with a very small cleric dip. Let's get into the build. All right, at level 1, we're going to start bard, really, as opposed to starting cleric, for one reason, and that is proficiency in the dexterity save versus proficiency in the wisdom save, which generally you're going to get more mileage out of dexterity saves, or you will be called upon to make a dex save more frequently. If you would prefer or are comfortable with taking the wisdom save instead, I'd probably start cleric, so that you can wear your armor, because you're going to get some and you're not going to be able to use it at first as a bard. So anyway, for your race, I would recommend Variant Human, because you get a free feat, and there are lots of great feats for support characters, and we want many of them. So starting off with one is just really strong, as you all know. An alternative would maybe be a changeling that I would recommend, and I did the changeling for the other bard build that we talked about a few weeks ago, because you can start with an 18 charisma, which is fantastic, but your other ability scores suffer a little bit, and that's challenging, and you don't get the free feat, which is a real bummer. Changelings do get some cool, really bardy abilities, especially Shape Changer, which allows you to change your appearance and voice, and that's really fun. But anyway, we're going to assume Variant Human here. Feel free to go another route if you're sick of Variant Humans. For the free feat that you do get, I would take Inspiring Leader. So this is so perfect for this build and for this class. It has a great thematically bardy feel to it, right? What happens with Inspiring Leader, you spend 10 minutes giving a rousing speech, or in your case, maybe singing an inspiring ballad, to your team, and they gain temporary hit points equivalent to your level plus your charisma modifier. So at level 1, that's 4 hit points. You're going to have a 16 charisma. So that's half or more hit points than some of the characters in your party will have. That's huge, and it scales nicely. It's usable every short rest. Between every short rest, characters can benefit from this. So anytime you're taking a rest, you can do this, give some nice temporary hit points, and it's super efficient. It's not costing any spell slots, and it's almost like, it's a proactive heal, right? It's just giving them a bigger hit point pool to start with. So a great use of your free feat, and a fantastic support ability. Use it every single short rest. Again, to put it in perspective, at this level, Healing Word would require a spell slot, of which you have 2. And it would heal for 5.5 hit points on average to one character. So instead of that, you're giving 4 hit points to everybody in your party. That's great. For your abilities, I would go, assuming point buy as always, 15 charisma plus 1 for your Variant Human bonus. 15 dex or constitution, and I'll explain, plus 1 there. And then 12 to the other one that you don't do 15 in. and then you got to get a 13 wisdom because we're going to multi-class into cleric, and you need 13 wisdom for that, which leaves you with just 8 strength and 8 intelligence. So with all of your skills that you get and expertise and things that I'll mention in a moment, you could go 16 dex instead of constitution and really fill the party's rogue requirement. If there is no other rogue, if there's nobody else that's high dexterous and able to pick locks, disarm traps, all of those kinds of things that you really need a rogue for, you can fill that role, which is great. And so if you are going to fill that role, make sure that you get a high dex so you can be really good at doing roguey things. And of course, proficiency in thieves' tools. Make sure you pick up some thieves' tools, whether via your background or when you're buying equipment, etc. And it potentially helps your damage too, having a high dex, assuming you're either going to be shooting things or using a rapier. It will be nice for you at early levels anyway, before your cantrips really start to scale. So anyway, make the decision there on what you want to do for your ability scores. As far as equipment, I'm going to recommend that you do a gold buy. And again, for those who don't know, as a bard, you would get 5d4 times 10 in gold if you wanted, instead of just taking the standard equipment. And so on average, that's going to be 125 gold for you. So you would want to buy a shield, which you can't use yet because you don't have proficiency in shields. Scale mail armor, which is medium armor, you don't have proficiency in that either. A rapier, a flute, because it's a cheap instrument and you need an instrument. Thieves' tools, assuming that you need those. If not, maybe buy yourself a nicer instrument. And a holy symbol, which you're going to need as a cleric. Get some traveler's clothes and maybe a pack of some kind, and that's going to put you at about 119 gold. So you are broke if you could even afford that. You're also super squishy, easily killable, and you're carrying around an armor and shield that you can't equip. So make up a cool story for that about why you're carrying this armor that you can't use. At level 1, just stay alive, don't die. As far as your spells go, I'm going to talk a lot more about your spells in this build than others, because the spells are primarily what make the difference between a good support and a crappy one. And so this episode is going to go long again, like last time. I'm worried that it's going to be even longer. And so if that bothers you, I am sorry. But anyway, so for your spells, you want to make sure that you get as a cantrip Vicious Mockery. This is, again, super bardy, and it's great. It basically gives your opponent disadvantage on their next attack, assuming they fail their save, and causes them a little bit of damage. But again, this could potentially cause them to miss their attack, and a missed enemy attack is almost always more efficient than a heal spell, right? As we've discussed, especially since this is a cantrip, it's costing you 0 resources. To top it off, nothing in D&D is better than killing someone with an insult. I've seen it happen many times in game, and it's always hilarious and memorable. Healing Word, you want to get as a first level spell. It's not a big heal, it's 1d4 plus your charisma modifier, but you can cast it as a bonus action, which is why it's so good. Use it to bounce fallen comrades and probably nothing else, in my opinion. Cure wounds, get cure wounds, because sometimes you really need to bounce a fallen comrade and you want your bonus action to do something else. It's tough because you have to touch them, whereas Healing Word is from range, right? So you actually have to be right next to them. You got to touch them. It takes an action instead of a bonus action. It heals for a little bit more. It's a D8 instead of a D4. Heroism is a good spell. It gives immunity. You cast it on one person. It gives them immunity to being frightened, which is nice. And it's kind of a poor man's heal over time, hot, as opposed to dot. It's not a real heal, it just gives them temporary hit points every turn, so assuming they're getting attacked every turn and taking damage every turn, then it's giving them temporary hit points back. For those who don't know, temporary hit points can't stack. You can't get 5 from one source and 5 from another. You have to choose 5 from that source or 5 from this source, right? It doesn't become 10. And if you give somebody temporary hit points on one turn, and they're still there the next turn, well, they don't get more temporary hit points. But assuming they're taking damage, it's nice. It does require concentration. You're probably not going to use it a lot. At level 1, it can be quite strong. And you can even upcast it to affect multiple targets. So it's pretty decent. The last one I'll mention at level 1, Hideous Laughter, again, very bardy. If they fail their save, they fall on the floor, so they're prone, and they're incapacitated, just doubled over with laughter. And it's a great flavor spell, but incapacitated is really strong. They can't take actions. They have disadvantage on things. You have advantage when you attack them. But if they take damage, then they're going to get advantage on their roll to break the Hideous Laughter effect, right? So probably don't damage them unless they're the last character, the last enemy standing, something like that. It does require concentration, as all the best spells seem to. Also at level 1, of course, you get your defining feature, Bardic Inspiration. And this is one thing that makes bards such great support. You inspire through words or music, and an ally that can hear you gets a d6, and later that will scale all the way up to a d12 to use. They have to use it within 10 minutes, right? But they can roll a Bardic Inspiration die to add it to their ability check roll, to their attack roll, or to their saving throw roll. So it can be both defensive and offensive, and it's just really great. You get a number of Bardic Inspirations equal to your charisma modifier, which for you right now is 3. So you get 3 per long rest. That'll change to short rest later. At level 2, we're going to take a level in Cleric. Okay, so here's the question, and we're going to put it to rest now. Do you really need to multi-class? Since bards, like I mentioned, they get magical secrets. Why multi-class when you can get access to every other character class's spell list, right? You don't have to do this, but if you're going pure support, I think it's very advisable, because here's what you get for a single level of a Cleric dip. You get shield proficiency and medium armor proficiency, which really are going to bolster your survivability. Your armor class is going way up. And then you also get some amazing support and even damage spells that we then don't have to waste our magical secrets on later. At level 1, you get some good cantrips and level 1 Cleric spells that I'll talk about in a minute that are great and very, very usable and friendly for you as a support character. Plus, maybe most importantly, you get a nice bump to every single heal spell that you cast. So, in my opinion, totally worth it. So, at level 1 of Cleric, you get to choose your domain, and we're going to take the Life Domain. Life Domain is awesome. It gives you proficiency with heavy armor, first of all, but you have an 8 strength, so you are too weak to wear most heavy armor, at least the good stuff. Sorry. Later on, if your party finds some mithril plate armor, you have first dibs. But until then, you're going to be wearing medium armor. But most importantly, as a Life Cleric, you get the Disciple of Life feature. It's the main reason we're here. Basically, any healing spell that you use, not necessarily when you cast it, but when you use it, and that's important wording, it's going to heal for an extra 2 plus the spell level. Okay, so keep that in mind. Anytime you use a healing spell, you're going to get some nice extra little healing out of it, which is fantastic. So for your spells as a Cleric, do not take healing spells as a Cleric, because it's going to go off of your spellcasting modifier, which for Clerics is Wisdom, and your Wisdom's only a 13. So don't take healing spells, take them as a Bard. But as a Cleric, some recommended spells. Guidance as a cantrip, it's fantastic. It lets you add a d4 to any skill check that you, if you cast it on yourself or another character, might make. So it's great, free, spammable, plus d4 to any skill check out of combat, essentially, right? I mean, you could use it in combat too, but most skill checks happen out of combat. That's fantastic. Spare the Dying, basically, if somebody goes down to 0 hit points and they're making death saving throws, you cast this, you touch them, and they are stabilized. They've succeeded on all their saving throws. It doesn't bring them up to 1 hit point. They're still unconscious, but it's nice in a pinch if you're out of spell slots and don't have a way to heal them. You can at least stabilize them, keep them from dying. Toll the Dead, I would recommend. It's a damage spell, but it's really good. It's a D12 of damage if the enemy's not at 100% of their hit points anyway. And so it's probably your strongest damage ability. They make a save or they take that damage. It will probably be your go-to action, unless you're casting you're needing a pinch heal, a cure wounds or something. Or that or Vicious Mockery, I would think, would be kind of your go-to action. Another spell that you definitely want is Bless. Bless lets up to 3 companions or more, if you cast it at a higher level, add a D4 to all of their attack rolls and their saving throws. For the cost of 1 first level spell. Super strong, great buff for your party. It's going to help you do more damage, and it's going to help you all take less damage anytime you need to make a save. Probably be your go-to concentration spell for quite some time. So strongly encourage Bless. I would also pick up Detect Magic because you get to cast it as a ritual. So if nobody else in your party has it, take it. That's very handy when you need it. And another one is Purify Food and Drink. It's the same. You can cast it as a ritual when you really need it to avoid getting poisoned, or you're suspicious that you might get poisoned. It's a really good one to have. Maybe sub that potentially for Inflict Wounds if you really want big damage. That's a nice damage spell at level 1. But that's not really why you're here. So I probably wouldn't take Inflict Wounds. That's me. At level 3, we're going back to Bard, and we're going Bard the rest of the way. Some of you may say, what? We're not even going to go to level 2 Cleric so that we can get our Channel Divinity? And the answer is no. Channel Divinity is nice, but it really is nice if you're taking a lot of Cleric levels, because the heal that you get from a Life Cleric's Channel Divinity scales with Cleric levels. And so unless you're going to invest into a lot of Cleric levels, it just doesn't do you a lot of good. At this point, it would do 10 healing, and it will only heal somebody up to half of their hit points. So it's just not that important, I don't think, as to getting those Bard features that you're going to need, getting to the magical secrets, getting your Bardic Inspiration renewed on a short rest, all of those things that come at later Bard levels. I don't want to delay those any further. So, Bard 2. You get Jack of all trades, which is fantastic. It gives you half of your proficiency bonus on any skill that you're not proficient in. So with a high charisma and your inspiring leader feat, you are the party face, you're the party leader probably, you're the support, and you might even be the party rogue. You are the Swiss Army knife of the group, so embrace it and love it. You also get at this level Song of Rest, which is fantastic. It lets you, whenever your party's taking a short rest, you pull out your flute or your lute or your harp and you strum a little tune, and it gives everybody an extra d6 of healing whenever they're expending hit dice to recover hit points during a short rest. Again, this is how most of the healing is done in Dungeons & Dragons, and so you're one of the only, if not the only, character that can buff this all-important way of healing in the game. So it just makes you that much better of a support than just about anybody else, in my opinion. At level 4, Bard 3, we get to choose our Bard College, and we are, as I mentioned before, taking the College of Lore. Now you're the Jack of all trades on steroids. You get proficiency with 3 more skills of your choice, and you also get cutting words, which is one of the coolest features of this college, I think. So the way cutting words works is, as a reaction, you use your Bardic Inspiration to lower an enemy's attack roll, ability check roll, or damage roll. probably the best use is to lower their attack roll if you're going to make them miss. Because again, the best healing is preventing an attack from landing in the first place. And it's awesome because you get to use it as a reaction. So the enemy rolls, they roll an 18 or whatever, and you lower that by a d6, which is your Bardic Inspiration die. And now the attack misses because your friend had an AC of 17, whatever. It's fantastic, and being able to use it as reaction is so great because we're going to be using, especially later, our bonus action a lot. And usually it's a bonus action to give Bardic Inspiration to someone, so that's fantastic. You also get second level spells now, and there are a lot of great control, buff, manipulate, and illusion options here, but just a couple that I'll mention. Heat metal, it's a damage spell. That's not really why we're here, and it does require concentration, so that's a real bummer. But if you really need it and the enemy is wearing metal armor, it basically is going to do damage to them every single round until they can take the armor off, which is supposed to take at least a minute. So they'll probably be dead by then, hopefully. Anyway, it's really strong, does good damage, but lesser restoration is very important for you. It's going to cure blind, deaf, paralyze, or poison. And, there's more to healing than restoring hit points, right? And this is important and something that your companions will look for you to do to cure them of these conditions as the support healer. Silence is a great spell, a great control spell. You can neutralize enemy spellcasters with it. It's a 20-foot radius circle. And, if the spell that they're trying to cast has a verbal component, well, now they can't. And if you can prevent that fireball from happening in the first place, that's way better than trying to heal all the damage that it did, right? It's especially good, because you can cast it as a ritual, and so if you can set up an ambush, then you don't even have to use a spell slot. It takes you 10 minutes to prepare the ritual, but, you cast silence in an area, and if you know you're going to be able to get enemies, spellcasters in there, fantastic. Didn't cost you anything but time. At level 5, you are a Bard 4, and you get an ability score increase or feat. I would recommend taking Charisma, because you want to get your spell difficulty check up, and the potential damage that you do with your Charisma spells up, and all of the things that you get from your Charisma up. So your Charisma is 18 now. At level 6, you are a Bard 5. And your Bardic Inspiration die now changes to a D8, so that's fantastic. And even more importantly, you get your Bardic Inspirations back now every short rest. So because your Charisma is 18, you have 4 Bardic Inspirations per short rest. Don't let them go unused, especially since you can use them as a reaction thanks to cutting words. Don't let them go unused. They're very important, very helpful. You get level 3 spells now. Just a couple that I'll mention. Catnap is great. It basically, you cast it on your group and everybody gets to take a short rest, but in just a 10-minute time frame. So if you know that time is of the essence and you really need to heal and, recover resources from a short rest, but you don't have time to spend an hour or whatever on a short rest, but you have 10 minutes, Catnap. Dispel Magic, take Dispel Magic if nobody else in your party has it, because that's always handy to have. And otherwise, there's just lots of great control and utility options at level 3 spells. Damage Report for level 6. Healing per round. What's the biggest heal you could do in a round? This again it's tough to quantify. There's not a lot of numbers, like I mentioned, that are really helpful here because nothing is a sustainable heal at this point, right? I guess if you upcast Cure Wounds here, it would heal for 22.5 damage, but like I mentioned, that's probably not enough to out-heal the damage that that a character could take in a single round, or at least your party could take in a single round, right? On the other hand, helping even one of them make their saving throw instead, with a Bardic Inspiration or a Bless, could potentially reduce a lot more damage than that healing spell at a 3rd level is going to be able to heal. So here's what I will do. I don't know how useful it will be, but I'm going to keep this number. I'm going to tuck it away and save it for later. Maybe we'll use it to compare to another healing build. I'm going to call it total combat healing. So if you were to expend all of your resources in over one long round of combat, what is the most healing that this character could possibly do? I'm not going to do out of combat because some of the more efficient heals are cast out of combat, and I'll talk about them. But that's not super useful to know how good this character is, right? Because if you're out of combat, you're safe. and some of those more efficient heals you can't really use in combat, so it's not particularly helpful to know how good this character may be when it comes to healing. So total combat healing that this character could do at this level, basically they're spending every single one of their spell slots on casting Cure Wounds at the highest level possible. And if they were to do that, you would get 129.5 total combat healing, TCH, out of this character. Again, not sure how useful that will be, but we'll talk about it and maybe find it useful later. At level 7, Bard 6, you get a feature called Counter Charm, which is really cool. It lets you, as an action, seek or sing or speak words of power that give everyone, all of your allies within 30 feet that can hear you, advantage against being frightened or charmed. So super cool and useful in certain scenarios against particular enemy types, right? And that lasts until your next turn, so that can be really good. And you're standing there inspiring them, singing this great ballad as they're fighting. As a lore bard, you also at level 6 get magical secrets. You're the only bard that gets magical secrets this early, and it's really one of the main reasons why we took this school. So for those who don't know, magical secrets basically lets you take 2 spells from any spellcaster. They don't have to be bard spells. They can be cleric spells, paladin spells. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the spell slots for those spells, you can take it, and that is so strong. So you get 2, and your 2 spells that I'm going to recommend are as follows. First of all, Goodberry. This is a well-known combo in the D&D optimizer universe, right? So it's a druid or ranger spell. When coupled with life cleric, which we are, it is maybe the most efficient spell in the game for healing. It basically gives you 10 berries, and as an action, someone can eat 1 of them. And again, this is why this does not work in combat. It really only works out of combat, because it takes an action to eat 1 berry, and you've got 10. And they heal for 1 hit point. But you're a life cleric, and so each one of those berries benefits from your life cleric ability, which is going to make each of those berries do an extra 2 healing, plus 1 for the spell level, so an extra 3 healing total. So 4 healing all in. Each berry does 4 hit points of healing, and if somebody eats all 10 of them, they would regain 40 hit points. But it would take them 10 actions to do that, right? So 40 hit points of healing for 1 first level spell is really strong. But again, it really only works out of combat, unless you need it in a pinch. I mean, you could, and I would probably advise this actually, giving everybody 1 good berry to carry with them. They last for 24 hours, and it's kind of a poor man's healing potion, free healing potion. They can use it on an ally if somebody goes down. Force feed them the good berry, right, to try and pop them back up. If you go down, you die, they can bring you back up if nobody else has a heal, right? So it can be useful. Now, just in case you're wondering and you want to contend that you're not supposed to be able to benefit from multiple good berries, there was an errata of Twitter conversation with Jeremy Crawford, basically saying, yes, you can benefit from multiple good berries, just not in a single round. You can't take the whole good berries and shove them all into your mouth and get 40 hit points. It still does take an action to eat 1. And they also have the nice added benefit of sustaining you, giving you sustenance for a full day. if you eat just one, so you don't have to, use any rations or anything, which is nice. But yeah, you can still eat more than one. It doesn't say that you can't. It doesn't say that you'll get too full and that you're going to throw up by eating multiple good berries. Just think Merry and Pippin with lembas bread, right? How many did you eat? 3. You can eat multiple. You just might be really full. The second spell that you want to take, I think, for your magical secrets is a paladin spell, Aura of Vitality. When it comes to support, the things that make paladins so good is their auras. Some of them are just innate auras, and some of them are spell auras. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the first kind. We're never going to get Aura of Protection, right? But you can get some really awesome aura spells. Aura of Vitality is a concentration spell. It extends in a 30-foot radius from you. And from that time, as long as you maintain concentration as a bonus action, you can heal somebody for 2d6 of hit points. And since you're a life cleric, that's +5 more every single round as a bonus action. That's not a huge amount of healing, but it's one of the only heal over time spells in the game, and it's an aura, and it's a bonus action. This is a really strong healing spell. It's very efficient. You only have to spend 1 spell slot, assuming you never lose concentration. And then as a bonus action, you can heal. So somebody goes down, you pop them back up with a bonus action. Whoever's lowest, every single turn, really, you're going to want to be using that. Heal you a little bit, heal you a little bit. It will help. I know that I said that the point for you is not to try and keep everybody topped off, but if you can do it really efficiently like this and not have to spend your action to do it, especially, it's super, super strong. So again, it requires concentration. That's a drawback. And while Bless is really good, and you might want to use Bless in certain situations, I feel like this is probably a better option for your concentration. It's going to be a little more efficient. And it still, like I said, it leaves you with your action available, so you can Vicious Mockery, or something like that, or Counter Charm, or whatever else you may need to do. And thanks to Cutting Words, you can still use your Bardic Inspirations to benefit your party by lowering the attack rolls or damage rolls, etc. of an enemy, because that only takes your reaction. So it just gives you a lot of great options for healing while still being able to do great things to buff, debuff, do damage, etc. At level 8, you are a Bard 7, and you get 4th level spells. There's some great control spells here that I'm not going to get into, but just speaking of control, again, if a creature is controlled and not able to attack your party, that's way better than healing, right? It's way more efficient than trying to heal the damage that they're going to do. So one spell I will mention, it gets talked about a lot in D&D, it's Polymorph, right? And just in case you're not familiar with Polymorph, basically it lets you change somebody into a creature of a challenge rating that's your level or lower. And it gets argued about a little bit because I've seen DMs play this differently. Essentially, this is what the spell says. The target's game statistics, including mental ability scores, are replaced by the statistics of the chosen beast. So your intelligence, for example, would be replaced by the beast. It has to be a beast, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. It retains its alignment and personality. I've seen some DMs say, well, because your intelligence is a 2, you don't get to choose who you're going to attack, and I'm basically going to take control of you. And I know some of you are going to say, that's not how it's supposed to be done. But I've seen it happen. So just make sure that you talk with your DM about, if I turn myself into a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a friend into a Tyrannosaurus Rex, will they still maintain control of their character and be able to attack who they want? Most DMs, I think, would say yes. Some will say no. Find out which one is yours. More importantly, and we don't often think about Polymorph in this way, but it can be a fantastic pseudo heal, because the way that it works, in case you don't know, is the creature takes on the hit points of the beast that you transform them into. So if they are down to 2 hit points left and you know they're about to die, or at least go unconscious, you can bamf them into a great ape that has 157 hit points, right? And now they just got 157 more hit points that the enemy has to whittle down to 0. And once they hit 0, then they go back to their former self with the 2 hit points that they had or whatever. But so it can be a great kind of heal-ish option. You can use it offensively, of course, too, to turn your enemy into a goldfish or something. But then they get to make a saving throw and it might fail. Anyway, so Polymorph is awesome and never leave home without it. At level 9, you are Bard 8 and you get another ability score increase. Here, I would again take Charisma, cap that Charisma score, so now you're at a 20, and that's awesome. Damage report / total combat healing report. So, using Aura of Vitality for as long as you can over one long combat round, you'd actually have to use it twice because you'd need 12 rounds of it, because then you'd have 12 other spell slots left, and you would use every single one of those, other than the 2 you used for Aura of Vitality, to upcast Cure Wounds. The total combat healing that this character could do is actually really high. It's 398 hit points of healing on average over that time. You know, that might be as much as or more than your entire party would take in a single round of, or in a single combat encounter, maybe even a couple combat encounters, right? But again, not super efficient because you used all of your heals for that. It probably took you longer to kill the enemy because you weren't doing much help to try and take them out. You know, if you're only having 1 or 2 combats per encounter, maybe it's a viable option, but most likely you're having more encounters than that per long rest. So you're going to need those spell slots. You need to be more efficient with them. But anyway, 398 TCH. At level 10, Bard 9. Your Song of Rest goes to a D8, which is awesome. More healing between combat. And you get 5th level spells. So if for some reason you need damage, more damage, and not support, your support is superfluous, get Animate Objects. It is one of the best sustainable spells for damage in the entire game. I won't go into it. You probably know why or can very easily figure it out. But as far as support spells go, Greater Restoration is a must-have for any good healer. It's like Lesser Restoration, but better. It cures just about everything that Lesser Restoration can't. Exhaustion, Charmed, Petrified, Curses, reduction to hit point maximum, etc., etc. Mass Cure Wounds. You should probably get for emergencies. It's a high-level spell, but it does heal the entire group as long as they're within 30 feet of you, and it's 3d8 plus your Charisma modifier plus 7 because you're a Life Cleric. Again, I probably wouldn't use it unless you have multiple people down, or at least one person down and others that are, you know, getting low and could really benefit from a little bump. You should probably get Raised Dead here as well. I know there's too many spells, but at some point anyway, you should probably get Raised Dead. You didn't get Revivify as a bard, and you didn't want to use one of your magical secrets on it. So if nobody else has a Resurrect anyway, you do get access to Raised Dead here, and is really nice in case somebody actually dies. You might use a magical secrets later for a Revivify, which is cheaper and better in a lot of ways. But anyway, like I said, you can't get all of those right now because you only get 2 per level, I think. There's a chart. It might not necessarily be 2 per level, but that's what it is on average. But anyway, eventually you're going to want all of those, so figure out which ones are most important to you. At level 11, Bard 10, your inspiration die is now a D10. That is super fantastic. And you get more expertise. So you get to double. I don't think I mentioned expertise before. You got it a long time ago, but it lets you double your proficiency on skills of your choice, which is really great. Most importantly at this level is magical secrets. You get more magical secrets. So, I'm gonna strongly recommend one spell, and then leave the second one maybe open. But as far as one of the spells that you should get for magical secrets, it's another paladin spell. It's another aura, Aura of Life. One of the greatest weaknesses in the way the going down to 0 hit points system works in D&D is that someone could go down to 0, and then later on it's your turn, and you healing word or whatever to bump them back up. They're on their feet. But depending on turn order, depending on the roll of the dice, they might not even get a chance to take a turn before an enemy whacks them again, and they just go back down without having ever gotten a chance to do anything, like drink a healing potion or escape, get to safety, or at least make an attack or do something to buff themselves, etc., right? And that's frustrating, and it can start to feel a little bit like whack-a-mole. They go down, you pop them back up, they stand there before they get a chance to do anything, they go back down, you pop them back up. And granted, it's actually not, especially if you have a bonus action heal, it's not terrible, because they are taking up an enemy action. They're essentially absorbing damage that could be going somewhere else, right? But as long as they're not dying, that's not horrible. But what would be better is if you had a way to let them heal on their turn, which is what Aura of Life gives you. So it's one of the only spells and abilities in the game that will do this, and it's super cool. 30-foot radius from you. Again, it's an aura. And you and all allies within the aura's range get resistance to necrotic damage, which is nice. Your hit point maximum can't be reduced, which is nice. Feels like a good one to bring when you're playing Curse of Strahd, right? Fighting lots of undead and vampires. But most importantly with this spell, if your friend goes unconscious, as long as they're still alive, on their turn, when they start their turn, if they are within your aura, they gain one hit point at the beginning of their turn. Obviously, that's not a lot of hit points, but it is fantastic. Well, you do get to add your Life Cleric bonus, so it's actually 5 hit points instead of 1. That's a little better. But the fact that it pops them up at the beginning of their turn is huge, right? They guarantee a turn as long as they're not dead. So they can pop up, they can take an action, they can drink a healing potion, they can disengage and run away, get to safety. So, in theory, assuming you have the spell slots, right? This is a 4th level spell. So assuming you have the spell slots, what you probably want to do really is keep Aura of Vitality going, healing 2d6, 2d6, 2d6 plus 4 because you're a Life Cleric, until someone goes down. And then at that point, switch to Aura of Life on your turn, right? And then when it's their turn, they pop back up. Of course, if they go down, I mean, you can figure this out, but if they go down and their turn in the turn order is right after you, then obviously on your turn, heal them, bring them back up, and then they get a turn, right? But if there's lots of monsters between you and them in the turn order, switch to Aura of Life. They're going to get a guaranteed turn as long as they don't die, which they could do, I guess. So anyway, keep that in mind. It's super fantastic. Aura of Vitality is the bigger heal, but Aura of Life gives them a guaranteed turn as long as they're alive on their turn still and haven't failed 3 death saves. For the second magical secrets, I'm not sure. Mass Healing Word could be good. It's surprising that you don't get that as a bard, since you get Mass Cure Wounds and you also get Healing Word, but not Mass Healing Word. So it's nice. It's a bonus action, and it has range. Oh, well, Mass Cure Wounds has range too, but it's an action instead of a bonus action. Anyway, that could be good. It does kind of conflict with your Aura of Vitality, because you need your bonus action for Aura of Vitality, right? If you haven't been able to fit Raise Dead into your spell list at this point, maybe consider taking Magical Secrets Revivify. The drawback is they can only have been dead for 1 minute. in order to bring them back with Revivify. But other than that, Revivify is kind of better in every way. It's a less expensive consumable component. It's a diamonds worth 300 instead of 500 gold. And it doesn't give them a penalty to attack rolls and saves and ability checks for 4 days like Raised Dead does. And it's only a casting time of 1 action instead of 1 hour. So it's better in every way unless they've been dead for longer than a minute, in which case Revivify does you no good. So anyway, consider that. I would probably, out of all of those actually though, as long as you've got your other bases covered, consider Wall of Force. We talked about Wall of Force in my Druid, no, that was last episode, Druid Wizard combo episode. One of the most powerful, if not the most powerful in my opinion, control spells in the game. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but consider it, because again, if you can remove multiple enemies from the combat and then take out, half of them, and then, brace yourself, get yourself all ready, and then take on the other half, that is going to make many encounters a lot easier than they otherwise would be. Let me know what you would do for magical secrets here in the comments. Holy Weapon, maybe. That's a great buff to give an ally an attack. Of course, it takes concentration, so I don't know. But anyway, consider and let me know. At level 12, Bard 11, you get 6th level spells. I will mention 2. Auto's Irresistible Dance, just because it's so bardy. I mean, come on, you're playing music, essentially, you could be for flavor as the spell, and somebody is forced to dance. It just doesn't get any better than that. It's a great control option. If they fail their save, they're forced to dance. They have disadvantage on their deck saves and attack rolls. Everyone else gets advantage on attack rolls against them. It's good, not great. It requires your concentration, but it's just awesome. And when you need it, it's just going to be really fun to use. Probably the better 6th level spell here is Mass Suggestion. It's complicated, but it lets you target up to 12 creatures at once in a 60-foot range, and if they fail their save, they kind of have to do what you suggest to them within reason. You have to make the course of action, the suggestion that you give them, sound reasonable, and you can't ask them to hurt themselves or do something that would very obviously hurt them. So it's going to be a little loosey-goosey. You're going to want to talk it over with your DM, but I think the most common use of this spell is to basically tell a group of enemies, hey, your friend insulted your mom, and everybody is told that same suggestion, so they all turn to each other and start fighting amongst themselves, right? It doesn't have to be your friend insulted your mom, but you get the gist. Your DM may not allow that. They may consider that unreasonable. I don't think I would. That's me. But as long as something like that is viable at your table, you just tapped into an incredibly powerful control spell. It both controls them and does damage for you as they attack themselves, right? The duration is 24 hours. If they fail that initial save, they don't get to try again. So you could really take them out for an entire day or force them to kill themselves. Or even longer if you upcast it. And worst case scenario, you say, the suggestion is, you better get out of here or else you're going to die, right? Then they have to run away, and they run away. If they fail their save, they run away from you for 24 hours. I mean, essentially ending the combat. I don't know, maybe your DM will have them come back tomorrow. But anyway, obviously lots of great uses for that spell, super powerful. At level 13, you are a Bard 12. You get an ability score increase or feat, and it's a little tougher of a call here. The healer feat is kind of okay. It lets you use a healer's kit to either get companions up from being unconscious or heal them 1d6 plus 4 plus their character level, so it's actually a pretty strong heal, but it requires an action. It requires having a healer's kit, and by this level you've probably got a lot of spells that you could, healing word on somebody really quick, bump them up. It just doesn't seem like a super efficient thing for you to do with your action and your resources, in my opinion. I would probably either bump your constitution to get more hit points and bump your saving throw, your Constitution saving throw, to help you maintain concentration, which will be very important. Or even better, probably, to go either Warcaster or Resilient Constitution, which is basically going to help you similarly to maintain your concentration and have a better Constitution save. Resilient Constitution's probably the stronger one at this level, but Warcaster could also be good. Could give you some nice options as far as, casting a spell on an opportunity attack. Let you still cast spells when you have both your hands full, and there's somatic components, etc. So figure it out, but those are my best suggestions. Total combat healing report. 549. That's a lot. That's assuming you're using Aura of Vitality for 15 rounds. So you're using 2 spell slots for that, and then with all of your other spell slots, again, you're upcasting Cure Wounds with every spell slot available to you. 549 hit points. Now, you're level 13. Monsters are doing a lot of damage. That might not even get you through an entire round of healing. But it might, an entire combat encounter, healing-wise. It might even get you through a couple. Depends on the encounter, depends on your team. Again, I don't think it's particularly efficient, but just so you know. All right, we're coming down the home stretch. Level 14, Bard 13. Your Song of Rest bumps to a D10, which is fantastic. More healing is good. And you get 7th level spells. So there's lots of fun and great stuff here. Your spells are getting very powerful. Magnificent Mansion is a favorite, and it's very bardy. It's one of those, you create a mansion you get to host all of your friends and have a big party, and you're safe and nobody else can hurt you, kind of thing. But a more powerful, probably for our purposes, an important one here is Regenerate. It's like Aura of Life, in that it gives someone 1 hit point at the start of their turn. But it has an added bonus of a strong 4d8 plus 15 heal to kind of initially get them up on their feet and going. So in theory, you could cast this, you could maintain your Aura of Vitality, right? Instead of switching to Aura of Life, maintain your Aura of Vitality. Somebody goes down, you hit them with Regenerate. That's a big initial heal. Then as a bonus action, you bonus action Aura of Vitality for even more healing. And then if they do go down on a future turn, they'll pop right up again with 1 hit point. It doesn't affect multiple targets like Aura of Life, and it is a 7th level spell, of which you have 1. But especially if there's really only 1 companion that's taking the brunt of the enemy attack, it's a good option. It doesn't require concentration, so that's nice. Consider Resurrection if you need something even more powerful than Raise Dead, because that tells you that they can have been dead for no more than a century. So that could bring in some interesting roleplay options where you're bringing back someone from ancient times, semi-ancient. At level 15, Bard 14, you get a College of Lore feature called Peerless Skill. It basically lets you use your Bardic Inspiration for your own ability check. At this point, you shouldn't be failing many ability checks with all of your Jack of all trades and expertise and all of the things that you have proficiency in, but it could happen. More importantly, magical secrets. So now you get magical secrets that you have spell slots for, and right now you have level 7 spell slots, or lower. I'll just mention one, Heal. It's a cleric spell. I think it's just clerics, maybe druids. It's a 70 hit point flat healing spell, which is great. Well, plus 8 for you, because you're a life cleric too. It's very good. That's very efficient for that level. Way better than Cure Wounds would be upcast here, right? You only have one 6th level spell slot. It's a 6th level spell. You only have one 6th level spell slot. But if you really need a big heal, this is almost as big as it gets in the game for you. It's definitely as big as it gets right now. I'd love to hear what else you guys might want to take for 6th or 7th level magical secrets. How about Reverse Gravity? You all know how much I love that spell based on last week's episode. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Level 16, Bard 15. Your Bardic Inspiration caps finally now at a D12. That's super awesome. Gonna be a big buff for those allies who you give it to, or a really nice detriment for an enemy that you cast it on to make them miss an attack or reduce their damage, etc. And you get 8th level spells. I love power word blank spells, power word X, right? I played AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, back in my junior high days, and those were always the pinnacle of spellcasting power, so they have a special place in my heart. Power word stun is available to you here. It's fantastic, a great control spell, and again, a controlled enemy is not doing any damage to your party. So if they have 150 hit points or fewer, then they are stunned, period. No save, no legendary save. They do get to make a Constitution save at the end of each turn to try and break that stun, but at this level, if they only have 150 hit points and you stun them and everybody's getting advantage on their attacks now, they might not survive to their turn to make that saving throw. Don't cast it on them if they're right after you in the turn order. And nothing's worse than guessing that they're down below 150 hit points and guessing wrong, and now the spell's wasted. That it's too bad that they don't allow for, maybe if they have more than 150, then they get a saving throw that they might succeed on or whatever. But anyway, it's a lot of fun, and if you pull it off, it's super strong. But it's tough because you got to know what their hit points are. So anyway, level 17, Bard 16, you get another feat here, or ability score increase, of course. I would probably go either Resilient, Constitution, or Warcaster, whichever one you didn't take last time. Or maybe just a flat bump to your Constitution for more hit points and a little bump to your saves too. So anyway, total combat healing report. You're casting Aura of Vitality for 17 rounds and then using your other 17 spell slots to upcast Cure Wounds up to 5th level spell slots, and then the heal spell for your 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spell slots. If you were to do all of that for 17 rounds straight, uninterrupted, it's 864.5 hit points of healing on average. Did I say you can't just stand back and heal your party all the time? You can't. You still can't, because you're probably not going to maintain concentration that whole time, for one thing. You're probably going to have more than a couple of challenging encounters per long rest, or else your DM's going too easy on you. And if you're not controlling, buffing, and doing some damage, those encounters are going to last a lot longer, so 865 hit points of healing might not stretch as far as you think. But that's still a lot of healing, so good job, you. I don't generally go past level 17 on these builds, but I'll just say that when you do get 9th level bard spells at level 18, because you're a 17 bard, every single one is amazing. Power word kill is always a favorite. It's not very supporty, but man, 100 hit points or less and they're instantly dead. No resist, no save, no legendary save. Sorry, Tiamat, you're dead, as long as you have under 100 hit points. Since you're support, you should probably get power word heal, which instantly brings a creature back to full hit points, no questions asked. Plus it removes a bunch of bad conditions on them. So super strong, great healer support option. And then you get magical secrets again the following level at level 19, level 18 bard. I mean, you got to get Wish, right? Because it's the most powerful spell in the game. But what else? What else would you guys get for magical secrets? I want to know. Final thoughts. Holy cow, this was a long episode again. I apologize unless you like that, and then I don't apologize. I love this character. I do. I had so much fun creating it. It took me forever to figure out how I wanted to build it, but once I figured it out, man, I feel like I have 15 children, and I only get to spend time with 2 of them, because I'm playing 2 different campaigns at the moment, and it's just not fair. I want 15 campaigns. Yeah, this character is so powerful. They really are. they don't pump out a lot of damage, but man, who needs it when you have the control, the buff, the debuff, and the healing options that this character brings. I mean, talk about just having access to about everything that you could want in a support character, right? All in one build. And I really wish I could play it. So, yeah, a lot of fun, and you get to be a bard. So you're the all singing, all dancing crap of the world. And it just gives you a lot of versatility, and your companions will just love you to death. Unless you're an annoying bard that tries to seduce everything, in which case they might hate you, but they'll still be grateful that you're on their team. So that's the show for the week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I will just remind you, of course, as always, please subscribe, like, share with people, comment. We're almost at 500 subscribers as of recording here, which I'm super stoked about. So thank you, and let's keep it going. Love it. Don't forget to check out the podcast version if you're watching on YouTube, which most of you seem to be doing. It's great for long car drives and long walks. And yeah, we're on social media, Facebook, and on Twitter. Don't get a lot of traction there, but that's okay. Maybe one day. But do email me as well if you want to interact. You can use the comments or social media, or email dndoptimized@gmail.com. And questions, comments, verbal abuse, feel free to hit me up. And especially if you have a build that you would like me to try and optimize and create here and do an episode on, give me as much information as you can on it. Give me details, how you want to see the character built, and I will do my best to optimize it for you. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon.